Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we've got some pretty interesting news in relation to the HBO Max story. Remember that Warner Brothers has announced that all of their films, all 21 or so of their films coming out in 2021 are going to be going straight to HBO Max same day as it will be released into theaters, and this has gotten a lot of people talking. Me, myself, and I have also been talking about this a bit, and I've been actually pretty critical of this choice because I think that this will absolutely kill theaters. There's been plenty of articles and plenty of people coming out saying it's not going to destroy theaters at all. Well, maybe not internationally, but I do believe firmly that American theaters will be destroyed by this, specifically because we're talking about some of the biggest films to come out in the year, including films like Dune and Matrix 4, set to come out in 2021. And if other studios see this as a financial possibility for them, then they could potentially also follow in the same suit, and then that itself would absolutely be the direct death knell to theaters themselves. But before we get into this story here and where I got it from, I want you to make sure that you smash the like button, hit the subscribe as well, and share this video with anyone that you think might find this news interesting. And so I gotta give a shout out to Super Anime Gamer, or at SuperAGO1 on Twitter, for sharing this story with me. So hail to you, good sir. And so this was originally posted by Discussing Film. Legendary apparently will send legal letters to Warner Brothers to challenge the decision to put Dune and Godzilla vs. Kong on HBO Max. Legendary apparently only had 30 minutes notice before WarnerMedia's 2021 HBO Max plan was announced. And that's something that we also heard about with movie theaters, that some theaters got hours in advance, some only got about an hour before the announcement was made, which shows that WarnerMedia is kind of pretty much acting very much with its own interest in mind, which again, it's its own company, should obviously keep those things in mind for itself. However, I do think that kind of, putting all of your partners on short notice and kind of screwing them over in the process isn't really necessarily the best way and the best path forward. And so anyway, let's go ahead and dive into this potential news right here from Deadline. And right, it says, we haven't done this column since March when the pandemic had just begun to show the unprecedented hardship, and we're going to go ahead and just skip that stuff. See, the boldest move came with this week's announcement by WarnerMedia that in light of those hardships, it will put its entire 2021 Warner Brothers film slate on HBO Max, as the films open simultaneously in theaters. They indicated the move might not be how it does business forever, but if HBO Max paid subscriptions spike and bolsters the stock the way Disney Plus did for its parents, clearly this momentum will continue at the expense of beleaguered exhibitors who watched their stocks plummet after the WarnerMedia announcement. Yeah, seriously, if you looked at AMC stock and all the movie theater exhibitors stock just completely plummeted after all of these things. And again, people said, oh yeah, well, theaters are going to be fine. Here's the thing. They're assuming that the federal government's going to come in and bail out all of the theaters. Now, do I think that there should be some money given to the theaters? Well, depending on what state they're in, sure. I mean, if I were in California or New York, I would say absolutely. In fact, that money should probably come out of the governor's pockets because they're the ones that have had these crazy shutdowns that have shown not to have really any major impact. We're looking at these states, and they're still having some of the highest hospitalizations. They're still having some of the highest spikes in cases, even with these lockdowns in play. So it kind of shows you, and coming from the CDC and WHO, lockdowns are really not that effective. Mask, social distancing, we can have that conversation. But as far as lockdowns go, they are incredibly detrimental to cultures and societies, and especially to everyday workers. But the fact that they're kind of, going off of this, because I guarantee you their thought was, oh, well, they'll just be taken care of by the taxpayer, at least in America. I find that ridiculous and abhorrent behavior. WarnerMedia made the move after it followed a similar formula with the Christmas Day release of Wonder Woman 84. This will be a week where WarnerMedia has to deal with the anger of co-financiers and talent with back-end deals on the 17 films, some of whom sold projects or committed to Warner Brothers films because the studio had traditionally been considered one of the best in big-scale theatrical launches. This is a very good point here, and here's where we get to the news. I'm hearing that Legendary Entertainment either has or will send legal letters to Warner Brothers as soon as today, challenging the decision to put the Denis Villeneuve film Dune into the HBO Max deal, and maybe even Godzilla vs. Kong as well. On the latter, Legendary reportedly had Netflix ready to pull the film from Warner Brothers for around $250 million before WarnerMedia blocked it. Sources said Legendary had no advance notice before last week's announcement that both Dune and Godzilla vs. Kong were part of the HBO Max plan. And that is a pretty big deal because, again, they've made these deals, they've made these contracts. This kind of dives into a little bit about how distribution and all that stuff works. You know how before a movie you always see that there's these different companies and they have their different labels, and sometimes they're really fancy animations, and sometimes you see a crap ton of them, and sometimes it's only a couple. So that's basically because all of these movies, in order for them to get made, have producers, right? So they have people behind it that actually are putting money into the production of the film itself. You then also have these studios that will come in and will be a part of the exhibition process, meaning that they're paying for things like marketing, paying for the film to actually get put into theaters themselves, and so therefore they're putting money basically on the back end. So you have people putting money up on the front end during the actual production and beforehand, and also on the back end after as well. And so basically you have one of those companies here that's saying, whoa, 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 we made this deal with you to distribute because we know that you're very good at getting these types of films out in the theaters. And they were probably thinking that theaters would be back at some point, or at least back to a certain extent at this point, and that's how that they would make some of their money back, which is why that, when they offered this deal, or when they were apparently having this deal, that Netflix could have bought their film Dune for $250 million, and WarnerMedia blocking it. Yeah, that provides some conflicts of interest, and that provides some really bad press, I would say, for WarnerMedia. And so it'll be interesting to see whether that legal document and whether those legal papers and letters actually have any impact, and whether they're actually able to change anything. It says, Legendary certainly seems to have the right to challenge WarnerMedia on its decision. Legendary and its partners provided 75% of the $165 million or so net budget of Dune, the adaptation of Frank Herbert novel that was envisioned to be the first of multiple films exploiting the 6-novel series. It put up a similar amount of funding on the Godzilla vs. Kong film. Will the long-term viability of the franchises be tarnished by starting out as an HBO Max offering? It's the same question the industry is asking about Wonder Woman. Legendary wouldn't comment. I'm told there are 3 other films that have a right to believe movies they majority finance are being served up to provide a steroid shot to HBO Max's paid subscriber base by undoing deals that were made for theatrical release and the traditional revenue waterfall. Yeah, and I think that's definitely a great deal, good point, because at this point they are basically violating the terms of the deal, essentially, right? So these deals were made with the assumption that they would be put out into theaters. Again, Legendary and their partners, so other studios, put up around 75% of the money, which means that the remaining money was put up after, probably towards the back end, I'd imagine, by WarnerMedia. They decided to pick it up for distribution, probably help out with the post-production process as well. And so therefore, the Legendary argument is, hey, we put in the vast majority of this money, and yet you're using this basically to bolster your own service and to help yourself, and we're probably not going to get any of that money back then because of that. Basically, you've changed the terms of the deal. We were expecting to get a return on investment, and by you doing this, yes, it helps you out, but it does not help us out in the end. And so it'll be interesting to see legally how all this would work out for them. I've spoken to numerous deal makers with skin in the game, and none were happy. They understood Warner Brothers was in a tight spot. Movies on a shelf accumulating interest costs, though interest is low right now, and the likelihood of half a year or more of the kind of paltry attendance that hobbled the studio's Christopher Nolan film Tenet before the theatrical market comes back with a glut of product. The vaccine is just around the corner, and some said they were upset that Warner Brothers announced a full year of movies to HBO Max instead of leaving open the possibility the experiment would end if movie-going rebounds after a vaccine eradicates the pandemic. Here's the thing, though. People are still going to get sick. It's just like this mindset of, hey, we have a flu shot every year. We still have the flu. We're still going to have COVID-19 even with a vaccine. And so that mindset is still also very much faulted in that capacity. You mentioned Tenet. Tenet actually made a fair amount of money for the marketplace that it was coming out to. But here's the thing. The market is never going to recover unless you start to put these films out. Unless you start to release these films back to the public, allow people to make decisions for themselves and their own families, and actually let the economy get back up and running, you're not going to have yourself a theater market to come back to at that point. So I'm very much eager to follow this story, to be perfectly honest, because even though it seems to be backroom politics, it is interesting because HBO Max seemingly acted on its own without talking to its partners, and has not only screwed over theaters, but has also even screwed over their partners, specifically with films like Godzilla vs. Kong and Dune, with Legendary Entertainment having a lot of skin in the game in that instance. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens. Will they be able to block these films from being put out onto HBO Max? Like, what is the terms of their agreements? Is there a legal path for that? That could be incredibly interesting to see if that does happen. So anyway, what are your thoughts about this? Do you think that Dune and Godzilla vs. Kong will get pulled off of HBO Max and be basically put back into limbo until theaters get back up and running? But again, they won't get back up and running when a vaccine gets announced. It's whenever the economy gets back up and running, because obviously you're going to have a lot of theater goers that are going to want to stay home and are going to want to still remain, more, cautious, overly cautious in a lot of ways before a vaccine actually comes out. So that part might be a bit true. But to say that that's the only reason why the theater business and the exhibition industry is not doing very well, and they say, oh, well, look, Tenet was the clear example. Tenet was the clear evidence. It's like, well, here's the thing. Tenet was the only major film to come out in a several month period. So of course it didn't do nearly as well as it would have done if the market had been different. But guess what? You can change the market, but you got to start making choices and decisions now. But anyway, let me know your thoughts about this in the comment section below. If you like this video, smash the like button, hit that subscribe, and of course, share the video with anyone that you think might find this content interesting. Check the links below in the description. Also, if you want to find out ways that you can help support the channel. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my December Patreon and Subscribe Star members, starting off with Patreon, Albertus Magnus, Andrew Hoyle, Animation Commentator, Brian P., Dion, Divex, Enrique Evangelista, Father Christopher Miller, hail to you, Father, Father Damian Cook, Garrett Searles, Harold Francis, The Hunky Chunky Funky Monkey, Inflamed Wood, It's a Trap Productions, Jason Clark, Jacob Juice, Jeffrey Toon, Jonathan Carney, Kenneth Cameo, Laura Story, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mike Jackson, Mr. Peabody and his evil twin with the beautiful hair, On to June, Orange Hat Reviews, Out of Step with Reality, Outpost Dyer, Riff Magos, Rosetta Allen, Steve Glasker, Miss Martin Muses, also known as Teresa Martin, Theodore Bendon, Tina Bogend, Tina B, and the Modern Major General, Laura Story. Gotta give you that shout out for that one time that you were doubled up. Thank you very much for being my Patreon members. And now a huge shout out to all of my December Subscribe Star members we have over there with Stand For, Perpetual Punster, Robert Revo, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, Darkstar 57, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., US 888209 Fast, Dean Heiss, J-Rod the Beer Guru, Nevadan G. Adams, and ZK Man. Thank you all so much for being my Patreon and Subscribe Star members. If you want your name shouted out at the end of every video and live stream on the main channel, please consider joining over on those platforms. You can also get access to things like exclusive giveaways of 4Ks, Blu-rays. If you want a DVD, I guess you could also get a DVD as well, digital codes, and of course, you get to possibly join me on the channel once a month for the Chosen of Valhalla live stream and access to an exclusive podcast featuring John the Flick Pick Flickinger, where we have a lot of fun talking about movies and tons of other random things. Anyway, if you want to support these things, check out the links in the description of this video. And also, please consider joining my other channel, the OMB Report, where I talk about not just movies like I do over here, but I focus more so on politics, news, and culture in that order. You guys are all amazing. Thank you for your love and support. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless.